joining us now live to talk about all of it and the new strand of particularly vicious and nefarious lawfare from the left is the great Mike Davis of the Article 3 Project. Mike, so it seems like Elon's over the target, right? So if they're going after Doge, if they're trying in multiple courthouses, they're trying to eliminate Doge. What a great endorsement of the work that Doge is doing. Will it succeed?
No, it will not ultimately succeed because the president of the United States not only has the constitutional power under Article 2 of the Constitution, he has the constitutional duty under Article 2 of the Constitution to take care that our laws are faithfully executed. And that includes making sure that we do not have waste, fraud, and abuse. And what Elon Musk is doing with Doge is he's trying to root out that waste, fraud, and abuse for President Trump. So President Trump fulfills his constitutional duty. Elon Musk and Doge are White House officials. They work for the White House chief of staff who works for the president of the United States. Everything they are doing is perfectly legal. And it's also, again, their constitutional duty to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. And when you have activist judges telling the president of the United States, his White House staff, including Elon Musk, and even his Treasury secretary, that they cannot look at Treasury payments, money going out from the federal Treasury to who the hell knows where it's going, that only career officials can look at those Treasury payments, but not the duly elected president of the United States, his White House staff, and his Senate-confirmed Treasury secretary. That is clearly unconstitutional. This is an outrageous sabotage of the president's Article 2 powers by this activist judge, and the Supreme Court of the United States needs to use the emergency docket to stop this.
It does seem like there is a confirmation here that the deep state is real and feels incredibly threatened right now. Is that the same takeaway that you have, Mike?
Yeah, the same people who pretend that the deep state is a conspiracy theory have certainly taken off their masks since President Trump was elected to office, because they really think that career officials in the Treasury Department do not have to tell their bosses, like the Treasury Secretary, or White House staff like Elon Musk or the President of the United States, where they're sending U.S. taxpayer money, right? That's a big problem. You have USAID foreign service officers who think that they don't report to the President of the United States, and then you have a federal judge, this Carl Nichols, who was even appointed by Trump the first time, who thinks he can tell the President of the United States you can't bring home foreign service officers serving abroad within 30 days because Carl Nichols has decided that that's too soon, and the commander-in-chief's decision doesn't matter, according to this activist judge, Carl Nichols. Maybe Carl Nichols has a conflict of interest that we need to explore at a later time. I mean, this is an outrageous abuse by these activist judges. This is not the president trying to steal legislative power from Congress. This is not the president trying to steal judicial power from the federal judiciary. These are activist judges who are stealing the president's core Article 2 executive power. The executive power belongs to the president and the president alone, and not to career, unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats who work for him.
It does seem like, especially the Rhode Island case, and I don't know the name of the exact judge, I'm sure you do. There's this judge in Rhode Island whose wife works for USAID, and he's down the dole, he's getting paid, and he made this ruling that Trump needs to come to him and report all of his government expenditures to this judge. Donald Trump, elected by 77 million Americans, needs to grovel to some guy in some backwater in Rhode Island who lives in a trailer, and Trump needs to beg him for the ability to be president. This is like what we fought a Revolutionary War against, right? Like, it's like that. It is clearly this doesn't function. Clearly, this isn't like a functioning republic.
I would say this: Rhode Island Judge John McConnell is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's buddy. This McConnell donated $500,000 to Democrats, and then he got his appointment after that from Obama and Sheldon Whitehouse, and he has been a left-wing activist on the federal bench since he got there. Now, I don't think his wife works for USAID. That's a different judge. The problem is that this is a judge who has taken off his judicial robe, climbed into the political arena, and has begun to throw political punches. And I would say to these judges who do that, expect to get counterpunched politically by the Article 3 project. We are going to name and shame you when you climb into the political arena, when you try to sabotage the president of the United States. Look, President Trump ran on the fact that he's going to hire Elon Musk, set up Doge, and lay waste to waste, fraud, and abuse in the executive branch. And the American people liked what they heard because they elected President Trump on November 5th with an overwhelming mandate, 312 electoral votes, all 7 swing states. Republicans kept the House, and Republicans won the Senate because of President Trump and his policy agenda. And so these resistants understand they can't stop him in the House, they can't stop him in the Senate, so they're getting desperate, and they're using their activist judges, mostly Democrats, but even a Republican, maybe with a conflict of interest, who are trying to stop the president from using his core Article 2 executive powers, like firing executive branch officials, like we saw with Dellinger, recalling foreign service officers within 30 days at USAID that Carl Nichols inexplicably stopped, unless you understand there's a potential conflict of interest. And then you have other judges trying to tell the president he can't look at Treasury payments, and his Treasury secretary can't look at Treasury payments. This is a radical assault on the presidency, so much bigger than President Trump, just like presidential immunity. And the Chief Justice, John Roberts, needs to get his federal judges in line and protect the separation of powers. Otherwise, when these federal judges, when these federal courts lose their legitimacy, they will lose their jurisdiction and they will lose their funding. I will make that my mission at the Article 3 project.
You don't have a president, right? Not as it's constitutionally formed. If every president has to go to every single backwater jurisdiction in all of America and grovel to judges to do their job, you don't have a functional presidency, right? No, I think that's ultimately the question before the Supreme Court, right, Mike?
Yeah, let's just ask Carl Nichols. Does President Trump have permission from you, Carl, to move troops? Or is that going to put too much of a burden on those troops and their families? Does the president of the United States have the power to send ICE agents to the southern border and detail them until we clean up the border? Or does Carl Nichols, who thinks he's the HR director for the executive branch or the union boss, I'm not sure what he thinks his job is. Does he think that these ICE officials are going to be too burdened under Carl Nichols's rationale if President Trump moves ICE officials to the southern border? How does Carl Nichols think he has the power to tell the president he can't bring foreign service officers serving abroad at USAID home within 30 days, paid, bringing them home from overseas? How the hell does this judge think that he has the power to stop the president from doing that? Unless, of course, this judge has a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So how does this argument go at the Supreme Court, Mike? It seems like a very simple one, right? It seems like a very clean argument at the Supreme Court.
It should be a simple argument, Ben, and that is if the 6 conservative Supreme Court justices follow the Constitution. We know the 3 radical hens are not going to do it. They're just cucking around, Trump deranged. The radical hens on the Supreme Court just bitter. They're pissed off that they're in the permanent minority for the rest of their lives. Just a bunch of bitter women on the left. But I would say this about the 6 Supreme Court justices who are supposed to follow the Constitution. Now is the time to find your backbones, because if federal judges can tell the president of the United States and his Treasury secretary they can't look at Treasury payments, if Federal activist judges can tell the president he can't fire executive branch officials. And not only that, the president has to take them back into office over his objection. If the president of the United States has to listen to HR Director Carl Nichols on the DC District Court before he moves soldiers, sailors, airmen, ICE officials, USAID workers, if that's what the presidency comes down to, these federal judges, these activist judges are going to destroy the presidency.
You bring up such a great point. I just want to, before we move quickly here, I just want to touch on this. President Trump is firing people who have launched coups against him, who have potentially tried to assassinate him either physically or judicially. He is firing people who obviously don't want to work with him, who want to destroy him and might want to see him killed. Again, it begs the question, Mike, if a president can't do that, you don't have a presidency. You have a constant insurrection, a constant coup against a president, and you're pretty much feeding any president that goes against the DC mainstream into a wood chipper and saying you're going to have to work in this den of vipers of people who hate you and will sabotage you and destroy you. That happened in Trump term 1.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say this, and let's talk about funding. If the president of the United States finds out that Congress has funded the UN in Gaza, which is funding Hamas terrorists, which kills Israelis and Americans, and the president knows that Congress has funded this terrorism, and the president stops this as the commander-in-chief, as the chief executive officer, do the courts really think the president can't stop that? Do the courts really think, oh, well, Congress has funded the UN in Gaza. We've learned that the UN in Gaza is a Hamas front group that ran terrorism, the worst terrorism imaginable against Israelis, where they kidnapped, raped, tortured, murdered women, children, the elderly, babies, the disabled. And the president learns that Congress has funded this terrorism. Congress didn't realize they did this, but the president wants to stop this. He wants to impound that money so this money does not keep going to Hamas terrorists through their UN Gaza front group. Can a judge stop him? Really? Does the Supreme Court really think a federal judge can stop that? These federal judges need to stay in their lane. They need to get the hell out of the Article 2 executive power lane and getting back to deciding cases and controversies. And their job is not to issue nationwide injunctions and ex parte TROs telling the president that he's essentially sabotaged in performing his constitutional duties because these left-wing judges and conflicted Republican judges have policy disagreements and actual conflict of interest with the president of the United States. So they are creating the constitutional crisis. These activist judges are creating the constitutional crisis. And this is the time for the Chief Justice, John Roberts, to step up and stop this. Because if there is a constitutional crisis, the judiciary is going to lose. They're going to lose their jurisdiction. They're going to lose their funding.
So speaking of losing funding and jurisdiction, in the Southern District of New York, there was a mass shrieking. I don't know what else to call it, like the no meme, right? Where the lib screams no. Like that happened last Friday when there was when the DOJ ordered the dropping of the case against Eric Adams. And you have an op-ed in Fox News this morning. Trump DOJ brings down a sovereign district of New York. This is, again, a data point in the proof that there is a deep state, there is a totally unaccountable group of activists who don't believe that they answer to the executive branch. Is this correct, Mike?
Yeah, so the acting deputy attorney general for President Trump, Amel Bove, gave this interim U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York a civics lesson when the attorney general, Pam Bondi, wanted the Southern District of New York to drop the bogus corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Now, Bove did not say that these were bogus charges. He didn't even have to go there. He just said, look, we want these charges dropped because they don't fit within our the president's or the attorney general's prosecutorial priorities. When you're wasting resources going after the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who got sideways with Biden on immigration, you're not spending your resources to go after violent crimes and migrant crimes, right? That's number one. And number two, the president and the attorney general determines that they wanted New York City Eric Adams to stay in place because he's actually cooperating with the president and the attorney general and DHS and getting these illegal immigrants the hell out of our country, which is like what 75% of Americans want. And so you have this pencil neck interim acting U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, this very well-credentialed former Supreme Court clerk, Ivy League freaking nerd, who thinks it's her job to tell the president and the attorney general and the deputy attorney general, no, I disagree with you on that. Well, too bad, right? No one elected you. You don't make these decisions, sweetheart. And so that's why you lost your job, as you should have. And they tried to throw out their conservative legal credential. And I would say this to these conservative FedSoc cucks. You're going to get a civics lessons here, right? Federal prosecutors work for the deputy attorney general, who works for the attorney general, who works for the president of the United States. And if you think that you work for the sovereign District of New York, you are a problem. You are very dangerous in our constitutional order. You think you are an unelected, unaccountable official in the Southern District of New York, and you don't report to the political leadership of the Justice Department, and who doesn't report to the President of the United States, who is not elected by the American people. I would say to these sanctimonious career prosecutors, go to hell, go find another job.
It's amazing how they finally speaking of finding backbones, Mike. The abject torturing of America's leading and then victorious political candidate, his family, everybody who ever said anything nice about him, the torturing of his supporters, at least 2,500 of which were facing or did hard time in federal prison, and you didn't see a single resignation. It's amazing. I was reading through your op-ed this morning. I'm sitting there screaming in the car. Not a single Fed objected to what they did to the J6ers. Not one. You didn't see a single Fed walk off the job before the Mar-a-Lago raid, or before like the angry librarian, Narwhal raid. You didn't see any of it. Not once. There was not a single protest point. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. They loved it. They all went along.
Where was Danielle Sassoon, or whatever the hell her name is, nobody until a week ago? Now she's the hero of the left.
Lady.
She's the FedSoc cuck, useful idiot of the left, because she was the principled warrior who stopped the president and the attorney general from dropping bogus charges against the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, because Adams dared to oppose Joe Biden when Joe Biden was overloading New York with a bunch of illegal immigrants who were committing crimes. The mayor was doing his damn job. Biden indicted him for that.
Yeah. None of these people said anything. So I say, out with them. Like, out. We'll get Kash Patel confirmed this week, and out with it. Like, just be done. If this is your line, if you had nothing to say over the last 4 years when you thought Democrats would have a permanent majority and permanent power, and you were dutifully sucking their toes and licking their boots and torturing members of President Trump's administration, himself, his family, and his supporters, then I have no F's to give when you're sitting here bitching and crying. Okay, Kash Patel confirmation real quickly, Mike. We're going to get Kash this week, yes?
Kash is coming probably on Thursday. Remember, Ben, when President Trump nominated Kash, all the very smart people said that Kash Patel's nomination was dead on arrival. And then the Article 3 Project teamed up with your show and other shows, and we got people to light up the Senate, and they went from dead on arrival to about 3 days later. Make it stop. When can he start? So let's finish the job. Go to article3project.org, article number 3project.org. Take action. We've had 6 nominees we've been trying to get across the finish line. We have 5 of them across the finish line. The last one right now is Kash Patel. Top left corner there, you see that handsome man who's going to be our next FBI director, Kash Patel. He is going to be a warrior. He's going to clean up that dumpster fire of the FBI. He's going to take out the politicized and weaponized garbage out of the FBI and focus the FBI on real crimes that affect real Americans, like violent crimes and migrant crimes.
Politicized, weaponized garbage. Mike, I can't let you go without getting your comment on the single most true thing you've ever said on this program. And you've said so many true things, but this ranks number 1. You told us months before it happened that Letitia James's fat ass would be going to prison. And you caught some hell for that. But lo and behold, like a present, like a late Christmas present that you discovered a month after Christmas, here it drops into our laps. On Friday, the DOJ announces lawsuit against Letitia James, of all people, for harboring migrants and dangerous criminals and terrorizing Americans against federal law. And it's almost, Mike, it's almost like you knew. It's almost like you had a sense about these things. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to do a touchdown dance on this one.
Well, I would say this. I think Pam Bondi made the decision to bring a civil lawsuit because I don't think Pam has the budget right now to feed Tish James in prison. So I think we're going to wait until we get a supplemental from Congress for the prison food budget to feed her fat ass in prison. And I think that's going to be the step 2. Media matters. They are going to be all over this. Blaring headlines. Mike Davis and Ben Johnson cause controversy again. But, love you, Big Tish.
Oh, man. Mike, I love that you make it impossible for us to ever travel to New York. I really do. I don't miss it. I don't want to go to New York. And I'm very glad that the list is just checked off, okay? That we're actually not allowed to travel to New York based on your comments on our show that are 100% accurate. And we freaking love you, Mike. Everybody go follow Mike, obviously. Hundreds of thousands of people already do. Mike on his way to 500,000 subs. 370,000 Americans follow him and also support the Article 3 project. You can find it right there. And put up that scorecard one more time. Look at Mike's work. He's just absolutely freaking got him. He's gotten all the nominees across the finish line, and the last one is this week. There it is. What a scalp wall there, Mike.
Yeah, I may be crazy, but I'm almost always right, and I almost always win. So we're going to get Kash across the finish line on Thursday, and we're going to bring justice to the FBI.
Fantastic, man. I'll see you at Kash Patel's swearing in ceremony, Mike. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be an awesome week.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mike.